I don't know how I'd feel about it if I was Coach McCarthy. He seemed to have mixed emotions. Micah showed up. I guess he did not no-show the situation, but we're far from the ideal team leader that he stated he's wanted to be. I think as a team, my reaction would be like, okay, it's OTAs, clearly not a leader. I guess we're looking somewhere else for that. I think it's really interesting the different Micah Parsons, like the public interview Micah Parsons, and then some of his actions that don't match up with wanting to be a leader. I don't know. Can you be a leader and not come to OTAs? Maybe that's the question I'm looking for at 877-881-1053. I don't know. Maybe you are being a leader. If you would come out and say, listen, I saw what happened to Sean Lee back in the day. I was in junior high school. I was, watching the Cowboys coverage. Son of a gun tore his ACL at OTAs. I don't want anything to do with that. Then I'd be like, you know what? I kind of like this guy. But if you're like, I'm here, how you doing, guys? No, it's not for me. I want to do something else. I don't know. Maybe I'd feel a little bit disrespected as a teammate. You said you were going to be at OTAs, and then you showed up and just did the meeting portion and then left before we started practicing. We got a new defense here, bro. We just had a big embarrassment for our defense in the playoffs. We're trying to buy into what Mike Zimmer's teaching. I know Mike Zimmer's a detail guy. I don't know how he would feel about that. But, Brian, what do you got to say about this story?
No, trust me, he's a former front office guy. I hate it when the players aren't there. And I know it's a voluntary situation. But you're right. I mean, after what happened at the end of last year and the way that defense broke down in that playoff game, not everybody was great. I mean, I'm not going to put it all on the defense. But, Dan Quinn went on. He moved on. And so now you're right. New defensive coordinator. There's a lot of guys new on that staff that you're going to have to, and you talk about, leadership and you talk about, how important and stuff. It's just hard. And I sense frustration from Mike McCarthy in the way of like, listen, I hear you talking about leadership and I want you to be here. I mean, he is the complete opposite of what Dak Prescott is. When you start to talk about leaders and your willingness to build a football field in the backyard of your home so you can keep working at it and have guys over, that is the level of leadership that you don't often see. But Micah, to me, it's very much just lip service. Yeah, need to be a leader, need to do this, and McCarthy can't come out and say what he probably really wants to say, but if you pulled him aside, he'd tell you like, yeah, I need the guy here. I need him practicing with the rest of these guys. And the practices aren't anything strenuous or anything like that, but they're trying to line up and get their fits and figure out, okay, who's going to play where, how we're going to, they didn't have enough bodies out there practicing on the defensive line today. They had guys that were playing in different positions and stuff like that. And so you wonder, okay, well, we're going to have to do some things. They were blitzing some guys. Micah's going to be involved in some blitz packages. Sure, they'll get all that, taken care of at training camp. Sure, they will. But right now is the first time you're getting to see it and kind of implement it. And if they make a mistake, they can go back and say, hey, coach, can we see that again? Which happened a couple of times today. Like, Guyton missed a blitz pickup. Coach, can we see that again, please? Guyton got it right the next time. That's how you work through things in these OTAs and mini camps, especially if you have a new staff. You can say, okay, we made a mistake here. Let's get stuff on tape and at least kind of have the coaches can have an idea of like, okay, this configuration looks good for us. This is something we can use.
Yeah, I think as a leader, you want to know what all those different job responsibilities are of the different players. You want to have as much experience and time on task as possible. I guess it's definitely possible that he's just so good, it's not going to matter one bit for his performance. He's going to show up and be one of the best pass rushers in the NFL, no matter what. So the Frankel Firm injury attorney text line is open for you at 877-881-1053 if you want to chime in. What do you think, Chief?
Well, I just think that like his performance hasn't been enough. Like even if his performance has been super, super awesome, that's not the missing ingredient. It's not like, Micah, we need you to be so much better. There's a different type of fabric to a championship team. And if you're going to be a leader, then you have to be able to be a part of that, especially if you're going to talk about being a leader. It's obvious that football is not like being the best possible player and teammate and leader for the Cowboys is not his biggest priority.
Yeah, he's not willing to sacrifice anything for it.
For sure.
Yeah,
He'll go sumo wrestle in Japan and throw the baseballs around with CJ Stroud. He'll play in a little NBA All-Star celebrity game, and he'll go sit courtside in Anthony Edwards' shoes. But I mean, even if you're not going full speed, I don't even know how much full speed stuff they're actually doing out there right now. But being there, soaking in the new defense, and again, building the camaraderie factor, like that's what it's evident to see what the missing ingredient that the Cowboys have right now compared to the Rangers, the Stars, and the Mavericks.
That's it.
It's obvious. It is very clear. And Marcus Simeon is leading the entire charge for every single player throughout the offseason. He's the one leading the workouts, whatever they're doing at Globe Life Field and facility. Yeah. He's the guy that's doing that. It's just a different type of dude. So Micah is obviously not that guy right now. Perhaps he can grow into that, but you talk out of both sides of your mouth a little bit when you start saying, I want to be this, but your actions speak louder, bro.
And I don't think you grow into it. I think you either are or you aren't. And I think it's very evident that he says all the right things, but the actions don't back that up. And that's what's frustrating. If you're going to go on the pod, and I understand why CD's not there, right? CD's fighting for his contract. And I want all these guys to make their money. We've seen how these careers can end in the blink of an eye. It's a physical sport, right? I'm always going to side with the player when it comes to that stuff. Make your money. But all these reasons that you're giving here, you're incorporating a new defense. You've got new coaching staffs. The way that they talked a lot about culture this offseason. And Micah was the one that said, all right, how does this change? It starts with us. It starts right now. If you're going to say it, do it. He's not doing it. Yeah. So, he says all the right things, but he talks the talk. He does not walk the walk like Jimmy Johnson used to say, right? And we saw when the Rangers went on their run to win a World Series, every single one of those guys is not talking about me. They're talking about we. They're bringing up their teammates. They loved each other. They had each other's backs. What's been the big difference with the Mavericks this year? They love each other. I know Mike got into a ton of heat last year. Theo Pinson's blowing him up on social media, said they didn't get along. It seemed like they sure as hell didn't, because this year they're all talking about how much more they're all getting along. The vibes are immaculate. Everything's great. Kyrie's a leader. Everything's awesome. Stars as well. That group is tight-knit. Wyatt Johnston's living with Joe Pavelski, right? Like, I don't care what you're doing in the offseason. Organized team activities or not, you want to be the best player. You want to be the face of a franchise. Be there. Your presence is mandatory, in my opinion.
Well, it doesn't also help, too, that, we were starting to hear the whispers during the season. And then, Sean Sharif and what he was talking about in the shows, after the season. And it does nothing to help what you're trying to do. Nobody's making this stuff up. There are legitimate whispers coming out of that organization about Micah Parsons and his availability and being around and type of teammate he is. That's
well, I hope
we're not making this stuff up. Seriously, we are not making this
stuff up. He's a great
up.
player on the field, but he rubs people the wrong way.
He absolutely does.
And that's fine if your best player does. You just need to not try to make him a leader.
But then you also do need to think twice about, is this person willing, should I pay him X amount of money? Because if that contract doesn't age well and this guy doesn't care and he's not going to the extra mile to fulfill that role, because now if I'm paying a guy $50 million a year as a defensive player, it's more than just how many sacks are you getting me, dude. I need you to be setting the tone every which way. That's why Corey Seager's earning that money. Marcus Simeon's earning that money. Everyone's following. Like, Seager is not a rah-rah guy, doesn't talk a lot. But what he does is he's routine-oriented. He shows up. Everyone follows him. He's leading by example. There's different ways of leadership.
Well, when he gets hurt, what's the one thing he does? He comes back quicker than anybody.
He does.
I mean, he's trying to get back. He's not, they've got situations.
And he'll play through injury like he's awesome on the field.
Yeah. He does everything. He is not a rah-rah guy.
And this is not contract related at all?
I don't think so at all. No.
Is this him saying, I don't want to learn how to be a stand-up linebacker for Mike Zimmer?
I think he does not want to be a stand-up linebacker. I really don't. I think it's honestly too difficult for him, because the things you have to do to be an off-ball linebacker is you have to know coverage, you have to know fits, You have to know how to play with the secondary and stuff like that. I don't think Micah particularly wants to be that guy. I think Micah put my hand in the dirt and rush the passer.
It's a lot more work and a lot less money.
Which he is one of the top 3 in the league at doing.
Okay, so Micah expected to be there. He was there, but then did not practice. Mike McCarthy asked if Micah has missed an opportunity to elevate teammates by missing parts of spring the past 2 years. Said, I think anytime you have a chance to be together, it's an opportunity to improve, whether it's in the mental realm, the physical realm, which is limited, obviously, this time of year, and the emotional connection and so forth. But, it's a long year. Training camp's really the heightened focus for all that.
Yeah,
but
he's saying all the right things right now.
So there's definitely an opportunity that's been missed. And then he quoted Darren Hambrick. What does voluntary mean?
Yeah.
And I think that's important, and you definitely have that right as a player, but is it in the best interest of your career or, your team? And I definitely think the answer to that is no, like every missed opportunity. Now, very possible he's an introvert. He wants to work alone. He knows about the media responsibilities, knows how to turn on the personality and say the right things that a star football player would be expected to say. So maybe he's just figuring out exactly who he is and how he fits in a team structure, and he's not quite, old enough to understand not everybody's cut out to be a leader, and maybe I should just go to, I'm going to be an elite player. And if you don't like that, then, let me go. I'll go somewhere else and, get him 14, 15 sacks maybe.
Right. And that, I think that's because he said it, like it was his own words. So now we're going to hold you accountable for that. If you recognize there's a culture issue and there's issues within that locker room and you want to be a guy that changes that, do so. Don't not be showing up and not being around the guys.
Yeah, and then talk about how bad you want to win a championship.
Yeah.
You're showing us that you don't really want to win one that bad.
Yeah, I don't know how you could say that and then not show up for every practice. Like, guys, we got to pull this together right now. We need every possible second to learn what Zimmer's doing. I need to know what you're doing so we can, intuitively know. You learn your teammates by being on the field and recognizing their body language and knowing when they're up, when they're down. And, obviously as many hours as you could possibly compile together is going to make that greater. I don't think I would not sign him. I can't imagine doing that. I just think you need to, have him in the appropriate category as far as your team leadership structure. Okay, 903, Micah has caught the Cowboys disease. I'm a Cowboy. I'm going to be famous off the field, get commercials. That's Lupe and Waxahachie.
He doesn't do commercials, though.
He doesn't have any yet?
Micah doesn't do commercials, does he? The only thing he does is he's
his podcast.
Well, he's the guy's podcast, and he's the director of content for FanDuel.
No, you got to deal with Adidas, and that's also why he was wearing the Edwards shoes. He's also an Adidas guy.
But we don't see him like Dak Prescott pushing yogurt and beds and any other items, right? I mean, I haven't seen
Tostitos. He did a Tostitos commercial.
Okay, that's one.
Might be coming later in his career. I don't know.
I mean, like you said,
I'm just surprised, but defensive players don't get those.
I'm just saying the thing that Micah Parsons is, he has interests other than football.
Yeah,
for sure.
And when he's not doing, when it's not July through January, he is not interested in doing anything football related, other than he'll work out and stuff like that. But he doesn't have time. He'll be the happiest if they get rid of these OTAs and all this stuff.
Yeah, 817. Why don't they just make the practice mandatory? It's negotiated, and the players
They're
wanted it that way.
They're about to get rid of all this stuff too.
Totally, OT is totally out.
The league is.
They're talking about it. Yeah,
they're talking about moving on from all this stuff and ramping up, making it a ramp up before training camp. That's what they're talking about. Micah just doesn't want to do it.
480, as I've been saying, trade him, get a boatload. If the team was interested in doing that, I think you could get a lot, but I don't think that's a winning tactic.
December, we were doing shows together. We brought up just a hypothetical.
Got mauled.
What would it take for you to trade Micah?
Yeah.
And we got MF'd. It is crazy that now just people are making their own assessment based on what they're seeing, and this thing is flipping pretty fast.
And it's fine. You want to maul us, great, but you know what? We were hearing things that now everybody's like, "Whoa, man, we'll get a boatload for him." Okay. There you go. Hope you get mauled too.